So I want to get to our next guy. We've gone through Iron Man. We've gone through Thor. Now it's time for Captain America. Yeah, he really is, isn't he? If you know him, if you've seen him, if you've met him, he is the Captain America of the group. That's for sure. And he is with Inman next. And we are so excited that he has come and joined us here at Active Rain for this webinar today. If you don't know Chris Smith yet, you will by the time you are done this, and you will start following the things that he is up to. You can see right now on the screen the best places to find Chris. He's given you the Twitter handle. He's given you their website. He's given you their Facebook page. His Twitter handle, well, we'll give you that one a little bit later as we go. It's impossible to get right because he decided to be the anti-Apple with his Twitter handle and pull the I right out of it. Chris, we've heard from Scott, and he gave us this amazing overview. Again, I'm going to go back to that. That was a fantastic overview on how if we're going to market, we need to do it right. Then we had Ben really bring the hammer. I mean, he's talking lead generation, what it's all about, how we're going to do this stuff when it comes to getting online. Today, you and I, we're going to have a little bit of a fireside chat instead of having you just do a presentation for everybody. We're going to talk about the exciting topic of Pinterest. So before we get going, because we're getting a lot of questions about it, anything you specifically want to say, throw out there, anything like that before I start asking you all the questions I've prepped for?
Sure. Well, first thing I want to say is thank you to Active Rain for having me, and it's always great to get a new audience, maybe somebody that doesn't keep up with Inman as closely, so thank you to Bob and everybody for having me on. Number two, Scott Stratton, thank you for such a great message, and if people haven't picked up his book, I mean, I read it about a year ago, and I bought the audio copy, but it's in paperback, Unmarketing, awesome book. And then, you know, it's always tough to follow such talented speakers because between what Scott covered with some of the etiquette and some of the, you know, overview, and then Ben really got into some of the great tools, you know, the pressure's on us now, Chad, to really bring our A game here and really help people understand Pinterest and the opportunities that it brings.
Well, Chris, I know having you on this call, opportunities are going to be the thing that are going to be shared, and everybody really wants to know about it because it is the thing. So my first question to you, Chris, as we get into this right now is Pinterest really that hot, and can it drive traffic for us? Do you believe Pinterest is really that hot, and can it drive traffic?
Yeah, those are interesting questions to start with. Is it, you know, I think really a different question, Chad, is do those two metrics matter when deciding if you should join, right? Because I think that's what a lot of times happens is because of the growth of a platform and because it starts getting out there and the masses start adopting it, a lot of times we join because we want traffic and we want leads. And unfortunately, that's not the best mindset to take, like Scott said, into kind of a cocktail party. So it doesn't work offline. It didn't work in Facebook. It isn't working in Twitter. Well, you know, a lot of those same bad kind of worst practices, they're not going to work here either. But I wanted to cover what I think the true power of Pinterest is. If you never used Pinterest once, you better take a look at what they did, because what they did is they redesigned the web. And if you think about it, Chad, if you think about this new kind of visual world we live in, and of course you and I did a webinar last week called The Photo Economy, design and images take center stage. You don't have to read a whole lot, like Ben said. Here's a quick challenge. Go to the home page of Facebook and then go to the home page of Pinterest and then just see which one has more words. So sometimes less words is better. And on the internet, especially with a visual industry like real estate and homes, sometimes less words is better. And I think Pinterest proved that. And if you look at this data, 80% of the pins on Pinterest are repins. Only about 1.4% of the tweets on Twitter are retweets. So Twitter is bigger. It's still got more users. So why is that happening? And what I looked at was, okay, when I go into Hootsuite or TweetDeck, or if I go to twitter.com, can I instantly find value in a tweet? And it's really hard to do, Chad, without clicking the link and then reading an article. But with Pinterest, you pretty much know right away, I either like this picture or not. I'm either going to repin it or I'm not. So when you talk about viral marketing and the ability for your content to get legs and to kind of spread to that third circle that Scott mentioned, I think Pinterest is a great place for that. So my challenge to the agents on the call, does your website look more like Pinterest, or does it have a bunch of words and a bunch of jargon? Can you visually represent what you stand for as a company over maybe sometimes writing that out? So I just want people to look at the way they've designed their sites. I think that's where the true power is. Make it minimal, make it visual, and make those images get people to the parts of your website where you generate your leads. So the design, and then the next thing we have to cover, Chad, is this concept that, yes, we're going to cover how to pin. We're going to cover some of the advanced Pinterest tools. We're going to cover some strategies and give some great examples of agents and brokerages using Pinterest. But at the end of the day, what are they really doing? And this isn't just Pinterest. This goes back to what Ben said. See what people are saying on Facebook and let that be why you call. Well, here's what people are doing on Pinterest. They're expressing themselves through pictures and images that are relevant to their life. This is a salesperson's dream, Chad. When you know what their likes and dislikes are, when you know that every bathroom in their bathroom board is blue, or when you can see that they love a certain type of food, these are the things that allow us to connect with our consumers. And then the other thing they're doing, and you guys know this, I mean, they're collecting things that they may want to use or not forget in the future. So when somebody puts something on a board, a lot of people have dream homes, dream kitchen, dream pool. That is them literally sharing with the world their vision board. In the past you had a vision board or like a cork board. I know in college, I had a cork board with a bunch of pictures that basically visually represented my life at that point. Well, that's what Pinterest is today.
Wow, and Chris, with 65% of the population being visual learners, Pinterest really captured on something on how people learn and want to share this information.
Yeah, what a great stat there, Chad. And I'm a little bit of both. I'm not against long-form content. I mean, I work for a news organization. We have awesome journalists. I write a ton of stuff. But at the end of the day, images are winning right now. When you look at Instagram and you look at Facebook and EdgeRank and how photos do better. So before we get into the X's and O's of Pinterest, I want people to just realize, number one, your site is probably not designed the right way. Number two, if you don't see kind of the benefit of people sharing their lives and their dreams and their needs and goals with you in a visual, organized fashion, I'm just not really sure that you're going to understand a lot of other stuff about sales. So it's really, really powerful to kind of start with the why Pinterest is possible. And now I want to show some of the data, because the data really goes to kind of what Scott started with. Is your demo on Pinterest?
So let me ask you that question then, as you've segued me nicely for this setup, Chris. We keep hearing Pinterest is all for the women. It's for the women. It's for the women. The ladies, they're all over Pinterest. Men, you don't even bother. I mean, is that true? Because we're talking about making sure we know our demographic.
Yeah, well, I know one thing that's true. I know that women make most of the decisions in my family. I know that women, when I was writing mortgages, 3 or 4 a day, I know that I didn't get a whole lot of guys that finished it out with me. It always came back to the wife being the decision maker and having that final say. So yes, the demographics trend a little bit towards females. I think that's a great thing. I think one of the stats that threw people off a little bit was 97% of the Facebook fans of Pinterest are women, but that doesn't mean that 97% of the users are. So the gender breakdown, this is actually data put together from ComScore as well as TechCrunch, and the gender breakdown is that 68.2% of the users are women. If you look at the age demographic, more than half of their users are between 25 and 44. So is that your demographic? Now, if I'm looking at this thing and I'm, dealing with the 55 and up demographic, and they're not even showing that on the chart, then I would not use Pinterest in an effort to market my business at all. So this is really important. 50% of the users, Chad, have children, and I'm certainly in that one, which is important. Here's another great stat. 28% of the Pinterest users have 100,000 plus household income. So this is just not the geeks. This is not, the bloggers and, the guys that look like they're a big deal online, but in the reality they're failing at what they do. These are people that are successful using the platform. And the time on site, if you look at the graphic in the bottom left, this is the one that really got me kind of bought all the way in. People spend on average about 16 minutes when they go to Pinterest. Look what they spend at YouTube, about 16 minutes. Facebook is actually at about 12 minutes per session. So the time a user spends from the time they log in until the time they log off, Pinterest has already surpassed Facebook. And look at Twitter. Twitter, people log in for 3 minutes, they see what's up, and they get out of there. So if you're in the eyeball business, I think Pinterest is a good place to start. And then the last stat I wanted to share is that Pinterest is the fastest growing website ever. They're the fastest standalone website to reach 10 million unique visitors. And it isn't just because they did it because they came up with a cool name and Mashable wrote about them. It's because they solved problems on the internet at large. The other stat there, if you look in the top right, just real quick, Chad, on the top right, you asked about traffic. Can I get traffic to my site from Pinterest? Well, Pinterest is already referring more traffic than YouTube, Google+, and LinkedIn combined. So if you're following the IMSD program and you're looking to get people to your website, certainly there's a benefit. We'll go in a little bit later into the quality of the traffic, but the quality of traffic is there. The other last thing before we get into the kind of X's and O's, what do you think about that headline, Chad? We just did a webinar where we kind of freaked out that Instagram was worth $1 billion. What do you think about this?
Well, I think there's 7 Instagrams sitting there right there on the screen right now.
Yeah, so this is a big play. I mean, I think people should keep an eye on Pinterest getting acquired. I would think maybe like a Google, would maybe pick up a company like Pinterest. But here's why Forbes says that they're a $7.7 billion company. Because they appeal to college-educated women between 25 and 44. So that goes right back to the other point. And then as far as time on the site, Forbes did a little bit of math. The average Pinterest user spends 89 minutes a month. The average Twitter user is on about 21 minutes per month. So again, if you're looking for people to see what you do online, you have to put your marketing where the majority of the eyeballs are at. And anytime
so Chris,
Forbes, yeah.
What I'm pulling out of this amazing statistic that you're giving me right here of Pinterest appealing to the college-educated female between the ages of 25 and 44 is that someone like, let's see, Ben Kinney should be posting all about himself because it sounds like it's the new Match.com.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's like a Tiger Woods dreamland, right, Chad?
There you go. All right. So let's figure out, now that we know a little bit about Pinterest and we know who's there and what they're looking at and all that stuff, let's start talking about what's right and what's wrong. Because as soon as we started this fireside chat talking about Pinterest, everyone was asking me the questions that kept saying to me, what about the ethical issues? What about the copyright issues? What about all of that stuff? What's going on? What's the right? What's the wrong way to use Pinterest? Yeah. So that's what I want to make sure. We gave concept. Ben gave us amazing lead gen. Let's pick one topic, Pinterest, right here, and let's make it happen. What's right and what's wrong, Chris?
Is it right or wrong? Well, first of all, I think it's great that we're asking that question because we should care about doing the right things. I don't know how many times I could tell you, Chad, that somebody will go to Inman.com or our blog next.inman.com and they will copy the entire article, they will paste it into their site, and they will publish it as if they wrote the words. And that is obviously not okay. What happened on Pinterest is it got so popular so quickly that they weren't really ready, and they really didn't have the systems in place to make sure the proper attribution was happening. But now they do. So the best place to learn about the do's and don'ts of Pinterest is pinterest.com/about/etiquette. They're going to give you all the best practices. Here's what you should do and shouldn't do. Here's what you can and can't do. But Katie and I, Katie Lance from Inman, we put together a list. Number 1, use common sense. I hate that we even have to put that in there, but that would be a do. Number 2, pin your own blog posts. but don't just pin your own blog posts. Now, if you're going to pin your own blog post, which I'll show you how to do that in a second, it's going to need to have a nice image in it, right? Because people aren't just going to fly through Pinterest. If they don't see a beautiful image in the pin, it's not going to pull them in and then make them want to go read more. So definitely pin things that you're passionate about. The other thing I haven't seen a lot of people doing, which I think is a huge opportunity, is being social internally of Pinterest. Facebook's too crowded. Twitter's too crowded. Pinterest is pretty new, so when somebody pins something, if you leave a comment, they get an email that you left a comment. People haven't turned off notifications for Pinterest yet, but they've turned them off for Facebook. So when you comment or like or repin content on Pinterest, that is as good as sending somebody an email saying, hey, I saw what you put on the internet and I thought it was pretty dang cool. So that's really important, is to kind of work inside of the ecosystem inside of Pinterest. Don't just hit and run. As far as don'ts, don't only pin your listings. I'm going to show an example of an agent in Orange County who's pinning his listings and a lot more, and it's beautiful and it makes sense. Don't spam, and certainly don't spend all day pinning. You know, I definitely don't think that people should ever spend all day doing any one thing. So pinning and Facebook would all be the same. And then as far as the copyright stuff, Chad, I put a couple asterisks there. The key with the copyright is you want to link back to the original source of the photo or the article where that author did link back to the source of the photo they used. So what I mean by that is a lot of people, Chad, they'll go to Google Images, they'll grab an image, and they'll pin that. And unfortunately, that doesn't give proper attribution back to all the way back to the source. Or if you upload it, if you go to Google Images, save an image, and then upload it, well, that also doesn't link back to the proper source. So proper attribution, really you don't even have to hardly think about it when I show you how to pin. But if you're concerned with copyright, make sure that you're sending people back to either the source of the image or to an article that has the source of the image. You know, you see the pictures, Chad, and it'll say image courtesy of Flickr, right? Those are the things that you need to be looking for.
Or maybe take your own images.
Well, a lot of this is going to be pinning your own stuff. Yeah, I mean, I've found, and I have a Google Analytics screenshot in a second, but I found that when you pin your own stuff and you write your own copy and you promote your own stuff, you get better traffic than when some random person you don't know pins it and says, cool, right? So that's going to actually be a big part of this, is kind of controlling what goes out there. And you can't just rely on everybody else to pin your stuff for you unless you're a big site like Zillow or Hyams or one of these big sites.
So you're talking about generating some traffic on that. There's obviously the graph, and we can track all that stuff. Chris, what's the quality of the traffic we're actually getting? I mean, am I getting people that I don't even want to bother with, or am I getting people that it's traffic worth having?
Well, I think one of the problems, Chad, is with the user experience on Pinterest, and you tell me, maybe I'm crazy, sometimes I'm clicking on the picture just to see it bigger. Would that be fair to say?
Well,
I mean, sometimes
that's got nothing to do with whether you're crazy or not, though, Chris. I mean, we all can agree that you're absolutely crazy. Okay. Yet we do agree that clicking on the picture to see the larger size, we all do that as well.
Right, but that becomes a referring click, right? So now all of a sudden this guy that just wanted to see a bigger picture is actually clicking through. So here's one good best practice. The larger your images are over on Pinterest, if they're not real tiny, a lot of people would say, oh, I'm going to put a tiny image and trick people into coming in. Well, all they're doing is looking for a bigger picture, and that's a bad strategy for the long run. But what I want people to understand about social media and about some of the stuff Ben covered and that Scott covered, my good friend Matthew Shadbolt wrote an article on our blog called On Streams. And the concept is that the idea that conversion can only happen on your own site is a myth. And I know that agents would agree with this. What I mean by that would be, have you ever on Facebook had somebody send you a message on Facebook saying, hey, we're thinking about selling our house, we need a little bit of help? They don't have to go to your website for that conversation to take place. You don't have to have this hardcore hub and spokes model where your entire goal of every network is to get people onto your own site, because we're living in the stream. The stream is where everything's happening. The news feed on Facebook, the Hootsuite columns, the Pinterest. These things are moving so quick, Chad, that if you're not willing to engage and interact in the stream where the fish are, you're not going to eat. If your only goal is to get people out of the stream and over to the banks so that you can hard sell them on your website, that's not a good strategy. So I just want you guys to understand that, yes, Pinterest is a great source of referring traffic, but that's certainly not the only benefit from having your brand and your marketing there. And big thanks to Matthew. If you guys want to read that piece, just go to next.inman.com and search on streams. But let's look at some of the data, Chad. And I want people to understand, is Pinterest sending me traffic already? You know, Ben mentioned that link at the top earlier. When you paste that in, I bet in the chat room when he said to do that, Chad, I bet you guys had like 1,000 people saying, I got an error message. I got an error message. Nothing showed up for me. Did you get some of that?
We did get a lot of that.
Okay, what that means is you don't have anybody pinning your stuff. That means there are no pins of your website on Pinterest. So you're not getting any pins. And it also means you haven't pinned any of your own stuff. Because if you have a pin on Pinterest that links back to your site, this will show up. But here's where I want people to really take a look at. Here's where you can find out, is this quality, is this traffic quality? Go to Google Analytics. If you're not using Google Analytics, you got to be using it. And Google Analytics tracks where traffic comes from, and that tracks it for your blog or website. I want you guys to go into traffic sources, click on referring traffic, and then you can search for the word Pinterest. And what that'll do is that'll show everybody coming in from Pinterest.com, and that'll show everybody coming in. You see how it says m.pinterest.com. That's mobile. And if you look at that number, now you know the true quality of traffic for your site. I reached out to some of the top real estate website vendors. I'm not going to name any names today, but the average time on site based on a couple thousand visitors has been about 4.5 minutes. Now that's a little bit less than what they normally get, but it's still certainly a decent time on site. So I don't want everybody to just get on this kind of concept that Pinterest traffic is terrible, or Pinterest traffic, you might get a lot of it, but it's not meaningful. The data shows us otherwise. Again, make sure your images are large enough so that when they see them on Pinterest, the only reason they would need to click would be to learn more, which is really, really cool. So go to Google Analytics, put in Pinterest, see how your site's doing. But I can tell you, Chad, that at Inman, we have seen an increase in traffic from Pinterest. They're starting to surpass Twitter. They're starting to surpass LinkedIn. And it isn't like we don't have big followings on those networks. So it's not like we suck at Twitter and now we're doing good at LinkedIn. We have a huge following at Inman on Twitter. This is just a better platform for regular people. That's what I would say, the 25 to 44 college female. A lot of them aren't on Twitter.
Okay, so Chris, you're telling me about it, that I can get conversations are going to happen everywhere. It doesn't have to be only on my site. It could be through some of these social networks. So you're showing me how I can get the traffic on it. I'm understanding that I should be using Pinterest. Now, maybe I can't get on it yet because I'm still waiting for an invite or something because Pinterest is still closed to some people. My question becomes, what do I actually pin? You're giving me all these great things about when I get pins and it can drive traffic and it will drive traffic, and we're showing that. What kind of stuff do I pin? Should I be pinning homes? Do I take them down once they're sold? Should I be pinning that dream board like you were talking about? What kind of stuff should I take the time to pin?
Yeah, what should I pin? I mean, one thing that we talked about last week on our call was you certainly need to find resources for inspiration and have those come to you. So, for example, there's a website, HOUZZ.com. And, I mean, they just put out some of the most beautiful images. In fact, when Scott showed that picture of the home that was the most pinned home on Pinterest, that came from House. So they are a great resource. You need to find eye candy. You need to find stuff that's like really, really sexy. And then, of course, you also want to look to your own site for things to pin. But here's a couple examples, Chad. I think it'll make it easier if people just see what actual practicing agents and brokerages are doing. Raj Kazar, he's a great guy out in Orange County. if you look at his board, which is along the top, he's got Orange County spaces. So it's kind of like these beautiful areas within a home. He's got a whole board for outdoors of Orange County. He's got a great board for Orange County Eats, right, where people can eat. He's got a great board for Orange County real estate. That would be where he would mix in his listings. And then he's even got a really cool Meet Our Team board, but it's genuine and it's awesome. Like Scott said, it's not the two guys that got someone that they paid to write the copy. They have beautiful pictures of their team. It's an awesome representation of his brand. So if you go to Pinterest.com/Raj Kazar, you can see his full board. He has a lot more than that. But it's really just about the variety. Like Scott said, people love their community every day of the year. They don't care about a real estate transaction every day of the year. So your boards should represent real life. House Style Realty, Style House Realty, excuse me, they're at Pinterest.com/StyleHouse. They've done a really great job of kind of pinpointing features within a home as well as colors. It's amazing how popular some of these colors can be. I know HGTV has a board of the month where they just focus on one color. Like last month it was like mint chocolate chip green, and people just love that. So Style House is doing a good job. They've got it broken down by color palette. They've got it broken down by work. So if somebody actually wants to look at different office ideas, bathroom ideas, they've got pieces of the home. So not the home itself, but kind of the things that make up a home. And then they've got an entire board dedicated to black and white. So hopefully when you see this, it's like, okay, I get it. It doesn't have to be all my listings and all my open houses. It can be a variety. And what's great about these boards, and I'll put this up against any expert out there, if you create a Pinterest board properly, it is the best representation on the web of who you really are. And I'm saying that's better than your blog. I'm saying that's better than Facebook, better than how you do Twitter, better than your emails. A Pinterest board done right is the best representation of you on the internet. So keep that in mind. And once you've built it, and once you realize how beautiful the user interface is, that's when I want you guys to then go back and look at your site and go, oh no, I would actually be better off sending people to Pinterest than my site, because my site doesn't look so cool, and I've got this beautiful landing page now for free that Pinterest let me set up. So a couple practical examples, some ideas of what to pin. Check out the Corcoran Group. You know, they always do a great job. Pinterest.com/Corcoran Group. We have an awesome board for Inman. Pinterest.com/Inman News. We've got homes of former U.S. presidents. You know, all kinds of cool ideas that we're coming up with. So follow some of these early adopters and then kind of take their ideas, right?
That's a great one. Now you mentioned, and this is an Active Rain call, so we're talking Active Rain, and that's blogging. I mean, the first thing that comes to everyone's mind, of course, is blogging, and you mentioned earlier pinning your blog posts.
Yeah. Yeah, you need to have beautiful images. We're going to show how to pin a blog post. It's really easy. I think sometimes people get worried about what buttons to press, and that's why I didn't want to start with what buttons to press, because that's going to come to you. Anytime a site becomes the fastest growing site ever, it's easy to use. And somebody should tweet that. Anytime a site is the fastest growing site ever, it's got to be easy to use, right? So we wanted to kind of go over, Chad, we're going to get into the X's and O's of how often should I pin, right?
Right.
And then also, what are some of the ways that make pinning easy and the best, right? So how often do you pin, Chad? Are you pinning right now? Are you a pinner?
I've gotten started on pinning. I've got this crazy obsession with trees. So I have a board that I've been posting as I go around the country, and I see trees that really catch my eye. I'm pinning about them. I'm not personally selling homes at the moment, so I'm not using it in the same way. I'm also.
But do you love trees? I mean, are you a tree? Yeah. So that's the thing. Like, I love technology. So one of my boards is called Cool Pictures of Technology, right? And now here's what's neat. Every now and then on Inman Next, we do an article with a picture of a cool piece of technology, right? So I've got 2,000 people following this board that just like what I like. We have that common bond that we both like the same thing. But when there's a cool piece of technology pictured on Inman or on Next, I have a built-in audience that's already raised their hand, Chad, and said, I like cool technology pictures. That is called permission marketing. It's a beautiful thing. So you're pinning, so you're kind of newer and you're pinning a little bit, is that right? And you're pinning trees?
Yeah, I'm just pinning a little bit. Trees and then books that I really love. I got to admit, I'm kind of letting everybody else make a mess of Pinterest before I jump in and then say, here's the right way to do it now that I've seen the people blow it up wrong.
Well, not a bad strategy, by the way, because think about it. Even if you see this number, Chad, and there's 50 million people on Pinterest or whatever it is, well, that means there's 800 million people on Facebook that aren't there yet, right? And if you look at it in that perspective, it hasn't reached the social media masses, but it is growing and it's easy. And, you know, hey, there are people out there that will buy a home from you, Chad, because they also like trees. I know that's crazy, but I bet it'll happen.
Absolutely. I'll make the relationship. Now, how often do you pin, and then how often do you recommend others that are just getting into it should be pinning, Chris?
Well, I've noticed some trends in the user behavior, and this was for me as well. So what I've noticed is people get excited about Pinterest, they log in, and they set up a bunch of boards, and they spend maybe like a 4-hour session. Like seriously, people sit there for hours. And when they get the boards put in place, they basically think they're done, right? So I have my real estate board, and I'll update that when I get a new listing. I have my Meet the Team board, and I'll update that when I get a new team member. That's great. But if you're not in the stream moves fast on Pinterest. It's kind of like this. I think a lot of people on the call understand how Craigslist works. Well, if you set up the best Craigslist ad ever, isn't it still gone the next day, Chad? Doesn't it move down the stream? Does that make sense?
It will.
Okay, so you can set up the best Pinterest boards ever, but if you're not in the stream, if you're not pinning and repinning regularly, you are going to lose quite a bit of traction. I think what Scott hit on earlier today for me really hit home, mobile. If you're not using the Pinterest iPhone app, if you're not using some of these tools we're going to cover that make it easy and quick to pin, it can become more of a time suck than a benefit. But what I would do is I would set my boards up and make them beautiful, and then we'll get into some of these tools so you can pin a couple times per day. Think about Facebook. You don't have to update your status every single day, but if you don't, you stop showing up in the news feeds. So think of it that way.
Okay, so Chris, other than this picture making me really hungry because Pacific time zone, we're getting to lunch here and we've been going and going and going.
Yeah.
A good burger is great, yet it's made better by the fries and the other stuff that go with it. It's all about the add-ons. Takes it to the next level. So let's talk a little bit about those add-ons that we should be getting on the side with Pinterest. What are some of those tools everybody should be adding to their repertoire?
Well, good question, and I just want to give a shout out to all my, vegetarian and pescatarian friends on the call because I don't eat burgers, so that doesn't look good to me. But it's one of those things that you want to streamline your processes, right? I mean, any business that runs well has systems and processes in place, and social media is really good at getting you to stop doing those systems and kind of distract you for hours at a time. So I wanted to give people a couple tools that I think make a ton of sense. The first one is called the Pin Bookmarklet, okay? And you can go to pinterest.com/about/goodies, which I thought was kind of cool. And you're going to look for the Pin Bookmarklet. Now, it doesn't matter if you're using Chrome, Firefox, Safari, or Internet Explorer. Now, there's some other reasons it might matter if you're using Internet Explorer, but that's a different call. I would recommend Chrome. And what it does, Chad, is it puts that little P in the top right corner. So if you look at the Hootsuite owl, you see the Evernote elephant, and then you can see the P for Pinterest. What this does is if you look at where I'm at right now, I am actually on an article on Inman Next. See the URL? next.inman.com/yada, yada, yada. Right? That was our photo economy class, Chad. What happens is when you visit a website like House or like Inman or whatever website it is that you're on that you want to pin something from, when you hit that little P, it actually will yank out the photos. So instead of seeing the whole article, we are only seeing the 3 photos that were in that article. One of the photos that pulled in was the ad for RainCamp. Obviously, that's not the one I want to choose. So you simply select the photo, and when you do that, it's going to bring up a list of your boards. So if I were pinning something that was one of my best webinars or one of my best blog posts, one of my some interesting web data, when I click on that image after I've clicked on the bookmark, it allows me to select the image, write the pin, choose to put it on Facebook or Twitter, and send it. The key to this process is that you never have to visit Pinterest.com to add great content to Pinterest.com. So if you know yourself and you know if you log into Pinterest you're going to be there for an hour looking at cupcake flavors, well, by all means, maybe use the bookmarklet instead. 2 clicks, great pins, and you can do it from the websites that you're already looking at every single day. The other thing at the bottom there, Chad, I mean, we see these social media icons everywhere, but I haven't seen enough people add the pin it button. And, you know, we're still working on getting it plugged in at Inman. It's something that you basically have to add to the back end of your website. You add it, if you're in WordPress, there's a bunch of plugins for it. But you need a pin it button. People get to your site. Now, this is interesting because this is from Social Media Examiner. More tweets, more likes, more LinkedIn shares, but people are starting to pin things. And in the real estate industry specifically, if you want your mind to be blown about how many people are pinning things from real estate, put in that website Ben mentioned earlier and put Zillow.com as the ending. Put HOUZZ.com as the ending. Put Realtor.com. Put Homes.com. Put Trulia.com. If you don't think people are pinning real estate content, that's one of the most popular things there. So you need to make it as easy as humanly possible for them to pin something. You don't want to rely on geeks like us, Chad, having that little pin bookmarklet in their browser. You want them to see what they're used to seeing. Tweet, like, share, and now we have pin. It's made its way into our vocabulary.
So let's go back and just step people through that one more time, Chris. They're going to go to Pinterest.com/abouts/goodies so that they can then get the bookmarklet for Pinterest. And then they will have, just like you, the P shows up. Now on mine it actually says, I don't have the images, it actually just says pin it on mine. So everyone, you might not end up with the P that looks just like what Chris's screenshot is here. You're going to have something.
Well, I'm in Google Chrome. I wanted to give it if you go to Pinterest in the website I mentioned, you can get the plug-in for everything. But for all my Chrome people, go to the Google App Web Store, and they have some better plugins. That's what I did. I went into the Chrome store and found that extension. But yeah, it's really simple, Chad, and all the instructions are at that website that I mentioned. You can add the bookmarklet, and you can add the pin it button. There's links and instructions on how to add both of those at that website.
So, Chris, I'm writing a blog. It's a brilliant blog about today. It's a great blog about RainCamp and all the information that came from it. And I'm going to put a beautiful picture into my blog of something. Whatever it's going to be, I'm going to put a picture into my blog that relates to what I'm talking about. Then all I got to do is go look at my own blog on Active Rain, hit my pin it from that I've bookmarked already, and now I can pin that picture onto my best blog board on Pinterest, and now my blog has been pinned there, and I haven't had to even log into Pinterest at the time. I just wrote my blog, and I connected it just like that.
Gotta love it, right, Chad? I mean, it's easy. And you know, unfortunately, because we have 2 webinars running, you know, they told me I couldn't go live on the web and actually show this, but I promise it's super easy. People can try it. Go to any of the sites that we've mentioned once you get the bookmark installed. Now, the first time you try to use it, you have to put in your Pinterest credentials, but then every time after that, it takes 2 seconds. So, yes, this is the best. So what I do, Chad, is I have these email newsletters coming to me with interesting web data. I have an email newsletter sending me beautiful pictures of technology. And when I get that email in the morning and I open up the link, I'm 2 clicks away from pinning that content. Again, systems and organization are important even when it's social media.
Oh, Chris, no wonder you're Captain America of this team. That's all I got to say. So now we were talking about everyone getting onto Pinterest and using this well and getting there and all of that stuff. Yet we know everybody's on Facebook already.
Yeah, they're all on Facebook.
So talk a little bit about Facebook and Pinterest together.
Sure, and it's interesting. Facebook for me is, you know, when you look at that screen, It's starting to look like a website, Chad, right? And it's getting very visual. But before I get into how the Pinterest integration with Facebook works, because we can't go live onto the web, Chad, like we want to, I did an hour webinar with Katie. I gave that link to Chris. If he could drop that in the chat, it's an hour of all live on the internet. A couple of the examples we used today we did use, but it goes a little bit deeper only because we could drive right into the Pinterest.com site and click around. So if anybody's interested in, even learning more about Pinterest, there's a full hour class for free. Chris has the link to that if you guys can tweet it out and stuff. But yeah, for me, Facebook, and we looked at EdgeRank earlier, photos do better. Ben showed that when people search Facebook, there's Pinterest.com links popping into the search bar, which kind of blew my mind. But yeah, you want to make Pinterest, in my opinion, something that plugs into Facebook. And it's very passive. It's not something where every time you pin something, it does a status update. It basically just collects your pins. And so if somebody's looking at your profile and they click on the Pinterest button, they can see all the things that you've been pinning over on Pinterest. So it doesn't really have that spamminess. A lot of these things, Chad, when you plug them in, all of a sudden it starts like doing updates for you. You don't even realize what's happening, and then you kind of turn it off. We won't name any names, but we all know about softwares that do that. But I've plugged it in. If you guys want to look at it, you can see my URL. You can't plug this into a Facebook page yet, I don't think. But if you go to my profile, you guys can all see it, facebook.com/CRSFSU. And all it's doing is just storing all my pins. You can now do that from Pinterest.com. So when you log into Pinterest.com right now, the very top banner, Chad, says, would you like to connect your pins to your Facebook timeline? So that's going to be something that I would recommend doing, only because that way when somebody comes to dig around my profile and they're kind of doing the stalker thing that we always talk about, the more and the better content that I can have, the better. And the fact that it just does this automatically is huge for me. The other thing I wanted to mention really quickly, I know a lot of the people on the call are familiar with tags. They know how to tag somebody on Facebook. What you may not realize is that you can also tag people on Pinterest. And again, because there's so many less people in there tagging people, and because most people aren't even using tags on Pinterest yet, it can really be very powerful. So one example would be if I found some interesting web data around mobile technology, and I know Matthew from the Corcoran Group is interested in that, not only can I pin this, I can pin it, I can tweet it, but then in the pin on Pinterest, I can say, hey, at Corcoran Group, did you happen to see this new chart about mobile data? So don't be afraid to tag people inside of Pinterest, and that's a good pull mechanism. We always try to push out our message. Pinterest with tags, you can pull people in to your marketing instead of pushing it out at them. So that's all I got, man. If people want the slides, go to facebook.com/Inman next, just right on the wall. This is the only time I'm doing this presentation, and I'm not giving these slides out to anybody except the RainCamp attendees. So go to facebook.com/Inman next. Let me know you are on the RainCamp call, and I'm going to personally, one at a time, I don't care if it takes me 2 days, I'll go in there and I'll provide the link to all these slides. If anybody has any other questions, you can go on Twitter. Chad, do you want to try to actually give out my Twitter?
Yeah, we can do our best. You spell that kind of funny. Now, I know if anybody's actually following us on Twitter, they've probably seen your handle go by more than 100 times already attached to the RainCamp hashtag. If you want to tweet Chris, it's Chris_Smith. Lose the I from his last name, though. He gave it to Apple. So that's Chris_Smith. Lose the I from his last name.
I have a common name, man. But yeah, thank you so much. And for everybody that's never checked out Inman, go to Inman.com, go to our blog, take a look at what we're doing, subscribe to our stuff. We have a membership that's awesome. It includes some amazing content that you can't get anywhere else on the web. I kind of think about it like this because I love Active Rain. Active Rain is about the community, and the content is built by the community. What a beautiful model. Our model is just a little bit different. We put out content built by journalists. It's that simple. So we have bloggers, but we also have people that are journalists that write about the real estate news and markets in your area for a living. It's not their hobby or something they're trying to do on the side to generate business. They are writers and journalists. So Inman.com is a plethora of great shareable, pinnable, tweetable type stuff. And again, thanks to Bob and everybody. I appreciate it. And I'm going to hop on to Twitter and answer any questions there.
Perfect, Chris. Thank you so much yet again for bringing it. You know, Captain America bringing us some amazing information as always. If you want to understand how these things work, Chris is always willing to share, and he's always got amazing information. I love when we get the chance to do a webinar together, you and I, as we bring this stuff to everybody. So thank you for being part of our team today. I know you'll be all over Twitter, so make sure you guys have his Twitter handle.